All right, well, thank you. We have the pleasure of introducing Rosanna Gabaldon, and we like to see her anytime we can. She's our state senator from this area. She was in the Arizona State House from 2013 to 2020. She was elected last November to the state Senate, has been in power office since January this year, correct? Rosanna's prime interests, some of them are education and working with children. She's known for her common sense, leadership from the heart. She's a good person. She's on several committees up in Phoenix, and she has sponsored and co-sponsored several bills that she might be telling us about. So anyway, Rosanna, take it away.
Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate the kind introduction and my gratitude and appreciation to the Green Valley Democrats for their warm hospitality. And George, thank you very much for the warm invitation. And so, as Paul said, I'm Rosanna Gabaldon. I'm your Arizona State Senator, and so I want to begin by actually telling a story, and then I'll probably end my remarks by telling another story. So this story was told to me by a constituent, and this is how they define the political role or a politician's role. And what it is a person is actually going into a forest, and they have to get through this very dense forest to get to their goal on the other side, their destination. And so this person starts walking down the paths, and they're going through the forest, and then they finally realize, I am lost. I don't know my way. And then all of a sudden they see this second person, and they call out to the second person, excuse me, I'm lost. And the second person says, well, I'm lost as well. So the first person looks at them and says, you know, I know my paths that I've gone down, and you know your paths that you've gone down. So together we're going to get through the forest. And so I think that's how politics should be. Where we find what we can agree to disagree, the paths that we have gone down and maybe have not gone down. So again, that's how my leadership is actually listening. So, because if we don't listen to each other, we're not going to get anywhere. So I grew up in a military family. So growing up in different parts of the world, I actually learned about diversity in a very young age, where you didn't really look at a person's, the color of their skin, or who they decided to worship, or who they decided to love. It was all about, we welcomed everyone because we were one big family in the military, and so I always want to, I guess, follow that. Is when I look at an individual, because as a public servant, I must not look at that, because I must represent everybody the same. And sometimes that's difficult. I'll tell you, it's difficult because we have different ideas and different ideology. And so I'm going to bring it back to the Capitol, where we can agree to disagree. And there's so many more topics and issues that we agree upon. But you don't hear about that. You hear about everything that we disagree with. And there is plenty that we disagree with, but there's much more that we agree on. So as getting back to my family, my father and my mother were very much volunteer. They would volunteer. They would show us. I have two older sisters, so the three girls. Every time we sat down for dinner, my father would ask us, what was your random act of kindness that day? Because what that did was that taught me that we must be kind to one another and find a way to help each other. And so that really helped me become the leader that I am today. And so volunteerism has been very, very important to me, has been something that I have done. So I lived in Tucson. I met my husband, Arturo, and we got married. And then we moved to Sahuarita in 2004. And in 2004, you have to remember that there was a housing boom. And there was so many homes that were being built in Rancho Sahuarita, or even in Green Valley. So all through the Green Valley Sahuarita area, there was this huge housing boom. And so when we moved to Sahuarita and we built a brand new home, I had been working since the age of 14. And when we got down here, I wasn't working. I was not unemployed. And so I found kind of a loss, and I wanted to give back to my community. So I began to volunteer, and I began to become part of the Green Valley Sahuarita area. And then I found out that, you know what, I can attend the Sahuarita Town Council meetings. And so that's what I did. I started going, and that's when they met back in Animax Park. That was even before they built the town hall. And I remember they used to joke and say, "Oh, there's Rosanna, you know, our member, our member of the public," right? Because sometimes I was the only one. It was staff and me in the audience. And what it would really interest me is I was looking and listening to this council, because of course Sahuarita was growing, and we were a bedroom community, and they were looking at the challenges of you know, this, we were based on sales tax, and so what we were going to do about that. And I thought, all these individuals are very, very smart. But what I realized was that there was nobody on that council that looked like me, that represented the way that I was thinking. And so after I said, you know what, I need to get my name out there. So I became commissioner for economic development, one of 7. And then I was a commissioner for parks and recreation for the town of Sahuarita. And that's how I began to get very interested. But then I started volunteering on boards. I was on the community food bank of Green Valley. You know, I was on the foundation of, you know, of Greater Green Valley. And so that's what I began to really feel that I could give much more back to my community, because I wasn't working full time. I was working part time at the Green Valley Library as a page, and I loved it. I loved, because I was able to see people every day. And so the volunteerism has been wonderful. But I continue, even as your state legislator, I continue to volunteer on boards and get out there and really give back to the community. And so I want to tell you a little bit about Sahuarita Town Council. So I worked very, very hard. And in 2009, I was elected. And so I got sworn in. And then the next day I went into my office at Town Hall, and I went, now what? How can I be an effective public servant? And they don't give you a manual. And so I began to learn. I began to learn to work with staff. And I learned how I could represent my constituency and get to be a better listener. And so on the Sahuarita Town Council, it gave me the experience. And also Pima County Democrats actually were at that time building the bench, as they said. They wanted to get individuals elected to local offices so that they could run for higher offices, if it be the state, you know, the state legislature, or even Congress. And so, or even the statewide office. And so I remember how it was a really positive thing to run for Sahuarita Town Council, because this gave me an opportunity to learn on the local level, because that gave me some good knowledge when I became your state representative, because I knew the impact that the state has on local municipalities and counties. And so it really was a very good time for me, because I was learning. I was able to work with my fellow council members. And again, we could agree to disagree, but this is a nonpartisan race. However, I felt that I needed help. So I did get help from the Pima County Democrats, you know, the support of Arizona List, the support of labor. I remember there was the local 469 from Phoenix that actually drove down and actually canvassed for an entire day. I was just so honored by that. And so I learned from that I need help. I can't do this by myself. I cannot be a good public servant unless I have the help of others, you know, if it be organizations, but of the help of each and every one of you. Because how can I serve you if I don't know what's on your mind? And so in 2012, I decided to resign from the Sahuarita Town Council, and I ran for the state house, because that was after redistricting and these new districts, and there was an opportunity for me to run. And so I ran for the state house, and thank you to a lot of you that are on this call today. I was able to be elected in 2012, and I was sworn in January 2013. And I spent 8 years in the state house. And throughout those years, again, I get sworn in, and then I go into my office and go, now what? Because in the Sahuarita Town Council, there was 7 of us. In the state house, there's 60 of us. And so it was a very interesting freshman orientation, because at that point we had a very large freshman class at the State House, and I was able to actually meet them in a very personal level. I'm talking my colleagues from on both sides of the aisle, and I was able to learn to be a better leader because I was able to listen and learn and then be able to share my experiences on the side with the town council and serving on boards down in the local level. So it was a very enlightening time for me. So when I began the whole 8 years, I served on what the Natural Resource Committee. There were different names over the years, because water sustainability was very important to me, and I was able to introduce legislation at that time, because there was a lot of lacking at that time. But you have to understand, when I was a freshman at the State House, their numbers were very much, my colleagues from across the aisle had a greater number of members, and so they really didn't need us Democrats. And unfortunately, it continues today, where the Democrats are not part of the budget discussion, which is unfortunate. But we as Democrats, we offer amendments so that we can make these bills better. And for the most part, I'm not saying that it didn't happen once or twice, but for the most part, our amendments were voted down. And so being in the State House, but also offered me to be part of what was called the Rural Caucus. And this was a bipartisan group, a caucus that actually where we talked about what was impacting rural Arizona. So it was individuals that actually represented not Maricopa or Pima, because I do represent Santa Cruz County. But we got together and we actually talked, and we had some really good ideas. However, the powers that be that was there, they weren't really open to what we really wanted in rural Arizona. And so that was a very unfortunate thing, but we didn't stop. And I worked with again, my colleagues from both aisles, and I had the honor of, for 2 years, being the minority vice chair of the Rural Caucus. And that really taught me a lot about my colleagues from across the aisle. And so if I really look back at that, my very first vote, I remember being a freshman, sitting on the floor, how exciting. My very first vote, which I voted no on, was appropriations funding for Republicans for their defense against SB 1070. And I thought that's something my Congress said, no, the taxpayers should not be paying for their legal defense. And then one of the second votes is actually when Governor Brewer was there, was we actually expanded access, Medicare, Medicaid. And I have to say that that was a vote that I was very proud of. So again, over the years, there's been peaks and valleys. And so if you go into a website, it's azleg.gov. What you can do is you can go and you can look at any member, all 90 of us, the 30 in the Senate and 60 in the House, and you can look at our biographies. You can look at the bills that we have, what's called prime sponsor, which was what we introduced, and then we asked our colleagues if they want to co-sponsor. And actually there's a tab at the very top that you can see every single legislative session that I'm there. This is my 9th, is that you can see what bills that I have sponsored and the bills that I have co-sponsored, and they vary. That there's quite a few bills, healthcare, criminal justice, environment, banking, the whole gamut. You have to understand that there's hundreds and sometimes 1,000 bills that are introduced on both chambers. And so not all those bills are being heard in the committee. So so once your bill is assigned to a committee, you go to that chairman and you ask them. I was very fortunate to have a bill actually get through and get signed by the governor. And so very rare that a Democrat actually has that, have that happen. And it's happened more, but not as much as I think we in the state of Arizona can benefit from that. And so being in the State House, it was a really very positive time, because we have opportunities, us Democrats, to be ranking members. And what that means is our minority leadership sits there and says, hey, Rosanna, do you want to be ranking member? So the last 6 years I was in the House, I was ranking member of the Natural Resource Committee. And what that is, my responsibility as ranking member is actually to educate my caucus on bills that are actually being assigned to the committee and the bills that are actually heard in the committee, so that when we actually caucus those bills, then I'm the one that anybody in that committee can speak, or anybody at the caucus can speak. But it's probably my responsibility as ranking member to actually, educate my caucus in regards to if these bills are good or bad, or maybe we should put an amendment on there. And again, it was a much of an honor to do that, because I was ranking member for that those committees. And then another committee that I was ranking member was this. It was a state and state and federal affairs. And so that was a very interesting, because there was very few bills that actually went through, but I was able to get to know former Representative Rovero, who actually was trying to get relationships with Arizona and other countries. So if it not only just Mexico and Canada, but there was other countries that we were able to meet their consuls, or the consul generals in their consulates. And so it was a very good time. So again, if you're interested in knowing what kind of bills that I did introduce, if it be prime sponsor or if I co-sponsor, please visit azleg.gov. And then you can go under the House or the Senate, and you can look at what each of us have introduced as prime or co-sponsor. So let me talk a little bit about the state Senate. So now I'm, after 8 years spending time in the State House, there I am at the Senate. And what made me feel really good is that I was able to serve with some colleagues in my caucus that I had served in the House. And so it was like coming home. And so in the Senate, I am the ranking member of Transportation and Technology. And I also serve on the Health and Human Services Committee. And then I also serve on the Commerce Committee. And so again, there's 30 members, and there's 14 Democrats and 16 Republicans in the state Senate. And so it was again, so now what am I going to do? But again, being 8 years in the House, and I was able to start working along with my colleagues in my caucus, but also my colleagues from across the aisle. And so I had a bill I introduced, and what it was appropriations for the Santa Cruz County Provisional College. And I worked with the appropriations chair, and he heard my bill, and I was actually able to get it through the Senate. Unfortunately, in the House, it died in the House. It was not heard in committee. But those are the kind of things where I was able to work with my colleagues from across the aisle, with my caucus, and I was able to get bills that were heard. Some of our bills were heard, and some of them actually got to the floor, and we were able to vote on them. I'm talking the Democrats, and be able to get them to the House. And so it was more of our bills were heard in committee, and much more than when I was a freshman in the House. However, it's more of it's the time, ladies and gentlemen, it's the time now to have more bipartisan bills that really will benefit the citizens of Arizona. And we're working on that. We, meaning the Democratic caucus. But it's very difficult sometimes to work with individuals that I believe, and this is my personal opinion, I believe just are very like, I'm for it, and then when it comes to the budget, it gets cut out, and it's very frustrating. I'll tell you, it's frustrating because it's a good thing, and we're able to represent our constituency, and we're able to go out there and do really good things in for our state. And all of a sudden, when the budget comes up, they're either cut or something happens. And so this last budget, let me talk a little bit about it, is the budget has what's called burbs, which is the budget. I can't remember what the stands for, but anyway, you have the main budget bill, and then you have You have bills that actually address like healthcare, and you have bills that address transportation and criminal justice and education. So all those different budget bills, okay, and they're called burbs. And so we as a Democrats, we put amendments on there to make them better. So, to put more money towards something that has been lost. So you have to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that from 2008, our budgets have been cut because of the Great Recession that happened in 2008. And for the most part, the majority of our agencies or the organizations that actually do address our most vulnerable population have not received like inflation. So they're maybe getting the same amount of money. So again, it's more of the, how are we going to be able as a state be able to give the money back, give the money and the funding, the appropriations to these agencies so that they can help many more people. And so the budget becomes, again, we as Democrats, if we're lucky, we'll see it 24 hours before we actually start voting on it, or before the appropriations committee that actually spent a vote, because it goes through appropriations committee. And the thing is we're rushing to get these amendments in there because we know we have our priorities. The Democrats every year in both chambers come together and we have a plan. We have a blueprint of the budget and our priorities, what we want for the state of Arizona. And so those are the kind of things where we're at the legislature, it could be more bipartisan. And unfortunately, at times it's not. I have to say there's rare times that there is, and that we were able to do good things like the expansion of access, or working on transportation. Transportation is something that I just care very much about. And I was very happy to be on the transportation committee in the House the last 2 years I was there, and now as ranking member, is because transportation and infrastructure is very important to the state of Arizona. And I feel very good about that. It's because we're awaiting, the House and the Senate, the US House and Senate, to see if we can get that federal funding. And that's going to be good for the state of Arizona, because some of these roads in northern Arizona, up in the reservation, some of those roads have not even been fixed in 50 years. And so those roads, they're falling apart. And Arizona prides itself as being tourism. And so we really do need to focus on that. But not only the infrastructure on our roads, but a broadband. Broadband is something that we actually came very fast to our attention, even though we knew it was important. But broadband came as a right there in the front burner when our children were going to school via the computer, virtual. And then all of a sudden, all these children that did not have the access to broadband, to Wi-Fi, and some of them sitting in their parents' car and in the parking lot of a library. And so those were the kind of funding that we, the state of Arizona, can get through our federal government. But we can't just rely on the feds, because those are one-time appropriations. We, the state of Arizona, need to invest in long-term. We need to have permanent budget lines. And we don't have that. Sometimes it's so wonderful. We're putting, $1 million towards workers that are taking care of our most vulnerable, but that's temporary. It's only one time. It's one fiscal year. So it's something that is ongoing. But I want to go back to how I'm talking about frustration. However, I pride myself in being a statesman. I pride myself in saying good morning to everyone that's there, no matter what party they are. The staff, we have a tremendous staff, from our maintenance people. Lorena is the young lady that actually comes and cleans the third floor. She's an absolutely wonderful person. We have our security, and we have all the assistants. We have all our analysts that our DEM staff. We have our research staff, and so those are everything. So if you really think about it, I am a lifelong learner, And when I listen and when I learn, I can be a better public servant to all of you, because I think it's very, very important that we continue to listen, right? Because if we don't listen to each other, we're not going to get anywhere. And be able to get along with the chair men that are the three committees that I do serve on, but also all my colleagues from across the aisle. And so I think that's a very important element on that. So I know that everyone's probably thinking about this audit that had a report that was done yesterday. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some thoughts that we as the Democratic caucus actually came together, and I was very pleased that leadership asked us our opinion. So I'm going to read just a little bit to you about our thoughts regarding this report that was done in this audit that was supposed to be done within 60 days that lasted close to 5 months. And it said, today marks a truly embarrassing conclusion to the Republicans' sham audit. We watch Republicans gleefully attack the core of American democracy to appease the ego of a man who lost in a free and fair election that was certified by our governor and attorney general. And state Democratic leader Rebecca Rios, she quoted by saying that they won't stop after today. Republicans' real goal is to suppress Americans' right to vote. This fake audit, which has cost Arizona taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars, was never about increasing voter trust. It was about overturning the will of the voters, waging war against a fair and secure election, and encouraging conspiracy theories to challenge our American democracy. The facts are Maricopa County performed multiple real audits of the election as required under state law. So we were provided the reports. It was a fact that we always knew that President Biden won. We always knew that the election in Maricopa County was done in a fair way, and it was done by witnesses on both sides of the aisle. That it was done in a very democratic way. And so when we as a state allow this, and what I'm saying is that we have to really push back. And I'm glad that each and every one of you and all that have commented that we have to stand up for what we believe in. And not just as Democrats, but as human beings, because it's very important that we continue to represent not just ourselves, but all of the people that live in the state of Arizona. And I'm very proud. I'm very proud to be your public servant, because that's what I bring. I bring ideas from Southern Arizona, because, I bring it with common sense, as Paul introduced myself, because that's what we need. And we need it from our heart. And that's what I bring. I bring that to you. I bring that to the state of Arizona, because when I'm voting, what I'm doing is I'm thinking about how is this going to affect Legislative District 2, my constituency, my over 200,000 people that I represent. And then I look at how's this going to impact the region, Southern Arizona, whatever. And then how is this going to impact the state of Arizona? Because I don't only just represent Legislative District 2, I represent the state. And I bring that with humility. I bring that with leadership. I bring that with integrity. And so I'm very pleased that I am your public servant. And I just want you to know that my door is always open to you. As a public servant, that's what it's about. That's what I learned. And I didn't learn it like over a year or so. I learned it over the years, is that I must remember that I am your public servant, and that I represent you, and that sometimes your thoughts may be different than mine. However, I need to look at the common good of who I'm representing. And sometimes I may not vote along with my caucus, because perhaps that isn't going to benefit my legislative district first and foremost. and maybe it's not going to affect, really be effective in the region that I represent, right down here in Southern Arizona. But however, I have to look at the long term, and I'm happy, and I have to tell you, I'm a very proud lifelong Democrat, because this is the party that has supported me. This is the party that represents and reflects my beliefs, because we are a party of the people. And so what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to end with a story, because when my head gets too big, I remember this story, because sometimes it's very easy. It's very, because people treat me in a very different way. And I tell individuals that I'm just Rosanna. I just happen to be a state senator, but I'm no better than you, and I'm no better than anybody else. And so this story really reflects this. And so I'd like to read this to you so that I can read it properly. And this was a video that was actually sent to me by a constituent that that burst my bubble and said, Rosanna, you're acting too big for your britches. And so I'm going to read this to you, and please listen to it with an open heart. Okay. And this is from Simon Simnick, and he is a speaker of regarding leadership. So keep that in mind. And I was very pleased to find this on the internet, and because this is exactly what Simon said. It said, leadership is not a rank. Leadership is a choice. It is a choice to look after the person to your left and the person to your right. I heard a story about a former Undersecretary of Defense who gave a speech at a large conference. He took his place on the stage and began talking, sharing his prepared remarks with the audience. He paused to take a sip of coffee from the styrofoam cup he brought on stage with him. He took another sip, looked at the cup, and smiled. He said, interrupting his own speech, I spoke here last year. I presented at the same conference on the same stage, but last year I was still an undersecretary, he said. I flew here business class. And when I landed, there was someone waiting for me at the airport to take me to my hotel. Upon arriving at my hotel, he continued, there was someone else waiting for me. They had already checked me in to the hotel, so they handed me my key, escorted me to my room. The next morning, when I came down again, there was someone waiting for me in the lobby to drive me to the same venue that we are here today. I was taken through a back entrance, shown to a green room, and handed a cup of coffee in a beautiful ceramic cup. But this year, as I stand here to speak to you, I'm no longer the undersecretary, he continued. I flew here coach class, and when I arrived at the airport yesterday, there was no one there to meet me. I took a taxi to the hotel, and when I got there, I checked myself in and went by myself to my room. This morning, I came down to the lobby and caught another taxi to come here. I came in the front door and found my way backstage. Once there, I asked one of the techs if there was any coffee. He pointed to a coffee machine on the table against the wall, so I walked over and I poured myself a cup of coffee into this here styrofoam cup. He said as he raised the cup to show the audience. It occurs to me, he continued, the ceramic cup they gave me this last year was never meant for me at all. It was meant for the position I held. I deserve a styrofoam cup. This is the most important lesson I can impart to all of you here today. All the perks, all the benefits and advantages that you get for the rank or position you hold aren't meant for you. They are meant for the role you fill. And when you leave your role, which eventually you will, they will give the ceramic cup to the person who replaces you because you only ever deserved a styrofoam cup. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I enjoy my beverage in my styrofoam cup. So thank you very much for this opportunity to address you today. I look forward to your questions.
So much. We do have a chat comment from Jeannie Buell. It says, thank you, Senator. I am proud that you are our state senator. Okay, so that's the comment so far. George, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah. We had Sharon Magdahl here at our last meeting, and she was talking about water in the desert, the drought that's going on here. And I know one of your legislature priorities is water sustainability. You see anything coming into the legislation that would maybe help with the Colorado River Pack downline in the emergency problem that we're having with water?
Sure. Thank you for the question, George. I appreciate that. It was an honor and a privilege to actually, while I was in the State House, to be a delegate to the drought contingency plan, where we actually discussed as the state of Arizona. So there was a Republican and a Democrat from the House, a Republican and Democrat from the Senate, and then we also had other stakeholders. So there was about 40 to 45 delegates. And we met at the Central Arizona Project offices up in Phoenix. And there was at least 100 to 200 people that actually attended these meetings because everybody had a part in discussing our water sustainability, our water future. And so what happened was there's 7 basin states. There's 4 north of us, but we're part of the lower basin states. And so that's Nevada, California, and Arizona. And Mexico plays a role as well. And so what we did is we came up with a plan when the Lake Mead was actually going to go down, which was anticipating the level in Lake Mead was going to go down, that we would have a plan, a drought contingency plan. So understand, George, that we are actually in a 20+ year drought. And so we were anticipating that there was going to be less water in what's called the Central Arizona Project. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually address surface water, and then I will address the groundwater. And so surface water, we were able to come and get an agreement between the lower basin and then the upper basin. The 7 states actually submitted through the Bureau of Reclamation, through the Department of Interior, and Congress actually voted on it and accepted the drought contingency plan. So we as a state, we only had until the end of January, and at the midnight hour, we actually voted it in. And one of the things that the Democrats actually did in the House and the Senate here in the state was we were asking for money for conservation. We began with $10 million, and then we actually had to settle for $2 million. So again, with conservation, we have to look at how we're going to save our rivers and streams, the waterways that are protected by our animals and anything that would impact our waterways. And so we were able to actually get that implemented. And so, but now we are in what's called Tier 1, and that's on our surface water. So you have to remember there's 5 active management areas that actually receives Colorado River through the Central Arizona Project. So that was an agreement. But as everyone knows, and I don't want to go into the weeds too much, is that there's less water in our allocations from the Colorado River through the Central Arizona Project. So let me talk about groundwater. So anything that's outside of the active management areas, they are facing their challenges because their groundwater levels are going down. So give me an example is in Wilcox, they're actually experience what's called subsidence, where actually the earth actually is going down and it's causing cracks and fissures into the land. And so that it actually impacted a state route over there. So Representative Cobb actually has established 2 study committees, one for La Paz County and one for Mojave County. And they're actually talking about how they're going to address their groundwater, because the thing is you have to understand is either you have 2 sources of water. You either have the water that comes from the ground, or you have the water which is called surface water, which is water that can be delivered through canals or rivers and streams. And so again, to make a very long answer shorter, is that the state of Arizona is looking at potentially finding that next bucket of water, if it be desalination or working with the upper basin states There's actually been, I've heard through the grapevine, I don't know if this is something that will be following through, but the Columbia actually flows into the Snake River. And if we can build infrastructure from the Snake River into the Colorado, we can bring more wet water into the Colorado River. There's also been talks of desalinization, where we're working with the Republic of Mexico to actually, perhaps our water will start coming in from the south as opposed to it coming into the north. Then also there is a possibility that we will receive surface water, because 2 water utilities in our area actually has an appropriation or an allocation, excuse me, that's the word, allocation for Central Arizona project. So there is wet water that could come into our area and be able to recharge that. And then the last thing I want to bring up, and I think I'm getting into the weeds, but I think this is important, is that any homes that were built after 1996 in our area, we actually pay 2 times for our water. One, our utility actually delivers our water to our home and reports to what's called the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, and we pay through our property tax or through our utility to how much water that we're using. So it's called the CAGRD, or the GRD, is that we are actually paying anyone who's had their home built after 1996. We're actually paying 2 times for our water. And so that's another thing. It's kind of a way of being able to build more homes. So, but if you look at the bigger picture, is Arizona has to step back and say, we need to look at our agriculture. We need to look at our industry as to that's who's using the majority of our water right here in our backyard. We have, our mining and our agriculture is using the majority. They are using at least 80% of our groundwater at this time. And the other 20% is between businesses and residential. And so again, looking at it, we are on top of a very healthy aquifer. And that aquifer actually, ADWR, Arizona Department of Water Resource, actually says that we have enough water for at least 200 to 400 years, depending on where you drill your water. And so we're very blessed in this area. However, my 3 concerns about our water supply is contamination, depletion, and subsidence. Hope I answered your question, George.
Okay, thank you, Rosanna. We have a couple of chats for you. Do you think any members of the Arizona legislature will be indicted for their part in the January 6th insurrection?
Good question. Thank you. Thank you for asking. I think what's most important is the behavior, and how over the years, my colleagues from across the aisle have had not too much of a consequence of their behavior, and to me it's bad behavior. So my hope is, and I do hope, is that there is going to be a consequence of their behavior, because we are not a nation of violence. And what happened on January 6th was terrible. It was awful. And certain members of our elected officials here in Arizona, they participated in that bad behavior. I cannot say 100% that they will be indicted, but I hope there is a consequence to them, so that others can realize that we cannot do that as American citizens, and especially because we are public officials, that we are held to our public office and our behavior.
Okay. The another chat was, it's not an easy answer, I'm sure. Can we flip the Senate in 2022?
I love that question. We can do that. We tried that in 2020, and we got very, very close. And so what we need as a state is to actually get people to vote, to actually get out there, and it's the GTOV, right? Get out to vote. And we did that. There was a lot of boots on the ground. There was a lot of people out there that were registering voters. And what occurred was that we were very close. We actually gained seats in the Senate, and we were able to keep the minority. All we need in the House and in the Senate is just 2 more seats. And we can do that, but we have to do that together. We must work as a team. We can't sit there and work in silos and say, okay, you know what, I'm only gonna do something from Southern Arizona. I'm talking the voters need to work on getting more like-minded politicians, public servants elected. And I have to say, there are moderate Republicans that are out there. And if we can get them, even if they continue to be the majority, we can do a lot of different things. And we need a Democratic governor. We have a Democratic, Secretary of State, Superintendent of Public Instruction, and we have to get more Democrats in office. And I have to say, if it has to be a moderate Republican, let it be a moderate Republican, because we can get things done. And yes, in my heart and in my soul and in my mind, I know we can flip both the State House and the State Senate.
Well, Arizona turned blue in 2020, so hopefully we can do that. All right, does anybody else have any comments? If you do, raise your hand. The Republicans have passed voter suppression laws. How can we address this issue?
And thank you for that question. And the things that right now, there was some really bad legislation that actually was passed over the number of years, but this last legislative district has been worse. It was one of the worst legislative legislative session, and in regards to voter suppression. My colleagues from across the aisle want to make it harder and harder for voters to vote. This audit is going. They're saying, oh, we're already going to do more legislation this coming session, this 2022 session, because we look at what we found in this sham audit. And so yes, there's going to be more. So how can we address that? Is a push back and educate your neighbors and your family and others that only these laws that are being signed by our governor, that are being introduced by my colleagues from across the aisle, that this is bad because this is taking away our right to vote. This is taking away our opportunity to get the public servants that we want to actually serve us. What we can do is educate yourself, know what is happening, sign onto referendums, because sometimes that's the only thing that we can fight as citizens, is sign the initiatives, sign the referendums, because that's what's most important, because that's one way we can fight back. We can fight back by saying, giving a voice to the majority of people that were out there, the majority of people that wanted to be on Pebble, the people that signed up to be on the permanent early voter list, people that wanted to go to the polls, that wanted more polls, have a more opportunity to go and vote. The people that were in rural Arizona that didn't have an opportunity to actually be able to ask their neighbor to mail their ballot. It goes on and on and on. And what we can do is we can push back. We can get elected officials to repeal some of these really bad voter bills, election bills, and work together as a state. And we can do it, but we have to work together. We cannot work in silos.
Good answer. I think we have another one from Arlen. Besides giving money to support candidates outside of Pima, how would you suggest we as voters get involved to turn our Arizona legislature blue? And should we do things like go up to Maricopa and canvass? That's a question for you.
And thank you for the question. I appreciate that. Yes, the thing is some of us candidates that doesn't have a primary. There's times do go different parts of Arizona and actually do canvass and actually contribute, and you would think, oh, I can only give them $5. You don't know how wonderful it is. And I've talked to other candidates to get $5 that actually serve legislative district in Northern Arizona, and they get the $5 from someone from Southern Arizona, because we have to believe in one another. We have to learn from one another. And so going up to Maricopa County, absolutely. But why just Maricopa County? Why don't you go to Cochise or La Paz or any of the counties and be able to one day, you don't, like, as I mentioned before, you had local 469 from Phoenix actually come down and canvass one day, and we actually hit the entire town of Sahuarita. We hit doors, and I mean, we started from like 8 o'clock in the morning, and we ended when it got dark. And I have to tell you what a difference that makes for a candidate. You don't know how much it meant to me that they believed in me. So as candidates, it's wonderful to get the support, not only from your local community, but from others across our state. So thank you for the question. And then if I may, really quick, I'm sorry, was there another question? I didn't bring up the Independent Redistricting Commission, the IRC. And what I want to do very quickly is that right now the IRC has put out what's called grid maps. And what they've done is they've did almost equal within, I think, 1 or 2 people. They have created 30 legislative districts and the 9 congressional districts. So when you look at those maps, please don't take it to heart. They're going to be different because the IRC has to meet certain criteria. And what makes me feel more secure and I guess more comfortable is the fact that the U.S. Department of Justice must approve the maps. And so it's not about just the IRC saying, okay, we're gonna just build, we're just gonna create these districts. It's that it has to be fair and it has to follow the Voter Rights Act.
That's really great. George, did you have anything else? Any questions?
I could sit and talk to you all day. You got your finger on the pulse, and thank you for doing that. And yeah, there's 20 other questions. I will be going to speak at the IRC redistricting hearing on Wednesday. So if there's anybody else that would like to go along just to support the few Democrats that are going to be speaking there, we could use and gather a crowd. So if you're interested, please give me a phone call or email me, and we'll send a pack on Wednesday to see if we can't let them know that Pima County is here to make some changes.
And you don't have to speak, you can do it in writing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
please do.
overspeak you, over you, George, but there's an opportunity for you. And if you want to create your own map, you can do that as well. So there is a lot of opportunities for individuals to actually, make your voice heard for the IRC.
Absolutely.
And if I may, George and Paul, thank you very much for the hospitality, but thanks to everyone who is listening to me today. Please, again, don't hesitate to reach out. I am your public servant, and know that it is an honor and privilege to serve you.
Can you give us the phone number right now, and I'll put it in the YouTube.
A phone number for my office is area code 602-926-3424. And if you want to email me, it's my first initial last name. So RGABaldon@azleg.gov. My assistant's name is Dylan. Please, you are my first priority. You tell them I am a constituent, and it does not necessarily have to be about state issues. I am a connector. If there's something that I can help you within the local level or on the federal level, I'd be more than happy to open that door to you, and I'll try my very best to have other public officials or stakeholders reach out to you.
Well, thanks for all your wonderful energy and information. Exceptional. We really appreciate that.
Well, you've always been so kind to me. The Green Valley Democrats have always been very kind to me. Other Democratic groups have been very kind to me, and so I'm very humbled. And I want to be part of the solution, not only in my my race, because I am very interested in continuing to be your state senator, but I want to actually help all Democrats get on the ballot and be able to win. Thank you.
Not only do we have a great senator, but we also have a great storyteller. So thank you for your stories today.
Thank you.
I thank you for coming and being a part and explaining all the things that are going on. Like I said, I could sit and talk to you all day. So thank you for spending the time with us. I want to thank everybody for attending today. Please feel free to invite your friends and neighbors next time. On October the 23rd, Tony Estrada, he's the retired sheriff from Santa Cruz County. He will be speaking on the border and law enforcement issues. And yay, we will be live in room 203. So set your calendar, put on your walking shoes, make sure you're vaccinated, and to wear a mask, because we will be once again in room 203, and we'll see how things go. The open house on September the 12th, we collected over 380 signatures for the 6th referendum. So thank you for everybody that worked, for everybody that came by. A special thanks to Representative Andrea D'Alessandro, who helped the rest of the week to get more signatures. So thanks we have a great group of legislators. Visit the website for the Zoom links and any more details on any of these upcoming events. Please mark your calendars. We're always here on the second and fourth Saturdays every month at 3 p.m. If you have someone that you would like to suggest as a speaker, email me at greenvalleydems@gmail.com. We will be posting an edited video on Facebook and also on the websites as soon as Paul gets a chance to edit it. Right now, I have recorded it to our Facebook, so you can go see the raw version of it. Paul, anything else?
No, just thank you very much, Rosanna, and come back and see us. I mean, you always have a wealth of information.
Thank you.
So you'll have to come back to us.
Everyone,
Thank you.
please stay healthy.
You too. Thank you for being here. If you'll hang on just a second, I'm going to shut down. And everybody, thank you for being here. Have a good one. Bye-bye.